Hello everybody, welcome along to the Lausitzring as we get set for the first of two free practice sessions today. Here's a quick look at the version of the circuit we're using this weekend, just under 3.5 kilometres long. The first corner where you come off the tri-oval, always a pinch point as we've seen in years gone by. They worked their way through this squiggly sequence of corners. We even had René Rast 5 years ago tipping over end in his Audi, but he has had success here as a race winner as well. Then you come back onto the tri-oval, and here we had the closest ever finish in the history of DTM, a near photo finish between, in 2020, Nico Müller and René Rast, just over 80 thousandths of a second as the pair of them crossed the line in a thrilling race finish. We got beautiful sunny weather here for you, unlike last time out at the Nürburgring where we had far from it, but it's set fair and looking like it's going to be around about 33, 34 degrees for the entire weekend here. So sunny skies, it's getting warmer and warmer. The track temperature is already beginning to rise. It'll be really hot this afternoon, but for now it's a manageable 23.5 degrees air temperature. Track temperature already close to 33 degrees though, and rising all the time as you can see. It's a track where it has a unique surface. Traction is always important around the version of the circuit that we're using this weekend, because you've got these fast sections where you use the tri-oval, but you've also got a very twisty infield with lots of slow corners, so difficult to get the tyres working, and even on a hot day like this, up to temperature quickly when they come out of the pit stops in the race, and you need a car which is good out of slow corners on traction. So the Porsches could be good here. And it's a Porsche driver that leads the championship standings at the halfway stage. The young Austrian in his second season of DTM, Thomas Preining, with a 28-point championship lead. One of 8 different race winners we've already had this season. 8 races, 8 different race winners. There is the championship leader, Tommy Preining, and Sheldon van der Linde, the reigning champion, his nearest rival at the moment. But look how tight it is behind. Only 1 point between Sheldon van der Linde, Mirko Bortolotti, who got his finally his first ever victory in DTM last time out at the Nürburgring. Ricardo Feller, who's been very consistent and also a race winner this year, 4th in the championship. A few big names a bit further down the order. René Rast, of course, missed a round due to his Formula E commitments earlier in the season, and he's yet to win a race this year. Marco Wittmann, double champion, yet to take a race victory either, back in 12th spot in the championship. At the first half of the season is done and dusted. We're now into the second half of the season, and should be some great racing here to kick things off. This circuit, this venue, built in 2000 already, 23 years ago, unbelievably, and it's been a feature of the DTM calendar ever since. If you're watching DTM last year, you will have noted that we used a very fast run through turn 1 on the tri-oval here. This circuit initially built for IndyCar racing and used for IndyCar racing. So it's got the tri-oval, not an oval, but a tri-oval with the 3 cornered sections, the banked corners. We used that first corner last year in DTM, but for this year, we're turning off and using this infield section. And the track is located around about 130 kilometres from Berlin. The nearest city is Dresden, which is about a 50-minute drive away. We're located in the Brandenburg region of Germany, to the east of Germany. And it's a huge venue, this. Vast roads and car parks as you come into the venue, almost from the entrance gate to the point where you actually get into the circuit. You know, it's a good sort of 10-minute drive. It's a very huge area that the venue takes up. The grandstands have a capacity of 120,000 people in the grandstands, to give you some idea of just how big it is. And there, from the raised camera, you can see from the camera crane to the right of the picture there, in the shade, the cars nosing out of this very big wide pit lane that we have as well, getting ready to go on track. So today, 2 45-minute practice sessions. There was a test here on Thursday as well. So a chance for the drivers, the teams, to get familiar with this layout of the circuit. Those that have previously competed in GT Masters will already know it. We've got practice from 11 till 11:45, and then another practice session this afternoon from 2:45 until 3:30, and then tomorrow morning the first qualifying session of the weekend is at 9:05 for 20 frenetic minutes, no doubt. And as ever, the races are at 1:30 each day. As you can see, the cars simultaneously released, so it's just gone 11 o'clock here local time. Free practice about to get underway, the second half of the season about to get underway. It has been completely unpredictable, more unpredictable than even ever before in DTM this season. Who knows what the second half of the year will bring? We're about to find out over the next couple of days. So my name's Chris Hartley. I'm up here in the box overlooking right at the top of the grandstands. You could walk, but we got the lift. It's a very long way up here, and you overlook the start-finish line. You can see right down over to the pit lane, and actually here you get a terrific view from the grandstand of pretty much the entire circuit here. And alongside me enjoying that view is Brian Oliver.
Morning, Chris. What a beautiful day it is here at the Lausitzring. Always good to be here. Could not be more different to last time out at Nürburgring. Not only the weather, I brought my ski jacket and my gloves this weekend, I won't be needing those, but the circuit, a completely different kind of circuit. It's amazing to look out over the tri-oval, and it's great to use part of that tri-oval. These cars look spectacular when they come out of turn 12 and brush up against the wall as they head along past the pits. Really looking forward to seeing that when we get racing.
And when we talk about sector times, the lap divided into 3. So they run into turn 1 on the tri-oval. They turn off, then a sharp left, almost a 90-degree left through turn 1. They build up the speed through a quick kink through a right, and then a left sequence at turns 2 and 3 into a tight, almost S-bend section, right through turns 4 and turn 5. There, from turn 5, the cars briefly head back out onto the tri-oval, which on the exit, on the banked version of the circuit, on the exit to turn 1, they run down there, and then they turn off the tri-oval again into the left-hander at turn 6. And just before you get to turn 6, that's where sector 1 ends. Turn 6, which should give lots of good overtaking opportunities, hard on the brakes into a left-hander. Then they build it up into almost a big sweeping wide hairpin, turning right at turn 7. Then you're well and truly in the infield. There's a short link straight, and at the end of that takes you to the end of sector 2. So sector 2 is pretty short. It only really encompasses turn 6 and 7. And then the final sector, a long sector, which takes you through the left at turn 8. A little link straight, building up the speed through a right at turn 9. Hard on the brakes for another double sequence of corners, or a couple of double sequences of corners here. A right at turn 10, which leads directly then into turn 11, where you rejoin the tri-oval. Thunder out of there. You've got to get a good exit, because then you are flat out all the way out through that turn, building up speed, getting as close to the wall as you dare without touching it, and then heading over the start-finish line to complete the lap of almost 3.5 kilometres around the circuit. Some changes to mention in terms of the driver lineup. Last time out, we had 2 new drivers coming into the championship, and happy to say they're both back with us. So, notably, Maximilian Paul, who came in with Grasser Racing Team and got the GRT team's first ever victory in DTM. There were great scenes down there with Gottfried Grasser and the team in the garage. They got the crates of beer out straight away at the end when I went down to see them. They celebrated with Maximilian Paul, who wasn't making his DTM debut. Had a race weekend at the Red Bull Ring a couple of years ago, but he came in and had the one weekend racing and got the race victory in those changeable and then ultimately very wet conditions in race 2. So tremendous victory, his first in the DTM at his 4th attempt. So he's back this weekend with the team. Mick Viesover started the season in the car, but is out for the rest of the year now. It sounds like it's probably going to be just this one more weekend for Maximilian Paul, because he's also competing and challenging for the title in the International GT Open Championship. And the remaining rounds, I think, all clash with the last 3 rounds of this championship. So I don't think we'll see Maximilian at the Saxon Ring, the Red Bull Ring, or at Hockenheim at the end of the season. But we're going to enjoy having him here, that's for sure, this weekend. So he's out in the number 19 Grasser Racing Lamborghini. Another driver that joined us last time out was young Sandro Holzem, who only 2 years ago was racing in the German Karting Championship, finishing 5th place in the 2021 Championship. He and his twin brother making their way into GT4 racing, and then a few weeks ago he got a podium in GT Masters alongside Marco Wittmann with Project One. But he's been doing lots and lots of training and simulator training in the build-up to his DTM debut, which was at the Nürburgring in a second Project One BMW, and he managed to score some points in his second ever race. So that was a really impressive turn from Sandro Holzem. And he's back for the rest of the season, we believe. So he's in the number 56 second Project One BMW alongside double champion Marco Wittmann, with whom he's doing lots of learning. Marco doing lots of mentoring for the young driver. So he's back this weekend. And one final change, which is new for this weekend, is that unfortunately on Monday it was announced that Christian Engelhardt has parted ways with the Top Sport team. He was one of the race winners, you might remember, from the opening weekend at Oschersleben. Very experienced driver, but they parted ways. He's not going to be with us for the rest of the season. So Christian Engelhardt for not just this weekend, but for the rest of the season. He's going to be replaced at Top Sport by Marvin Dienst, who has also had one weekend previously in the DTM, but been a tall order for him. He's coming into the championship with everybody having had a massive head start for the first half of the season. But he's going to come into the number 99 Top Sport WRT Porsche. Quite a bit of GT experience for him. He's also spent the last couple of years in things like the GT World Challenge Europe racing with Top Sport, so he knows the team well and has been a race winner in the GT Masters Championship as well. So he'll be a great addition to the grid. So he's in the number 99 Porsche. Marvin Dienst replacing Christian Engelhardt for the rest of the season. And quite sensibly, Mario and our team at the TV compound have decided to put onboard cameras on Maximilian Paul following his victory last time out, which was really impressive, wasn't it, Brian?
It really was. What a debut. All the headlines have been about Maximilian Paul. Everybody's been talking about him. I should think Marvin Dienst is having a look and hoping that he can have a similar kind of debut as well. Of course, Marvin, who won in GT Masters last year, as you already mentioned, alongside Jan Marszałkowski, but he's also the outgoing Prototype Cup Germany champion as well.
Yeah,
he's
right.
very impressive there. Has a long-standing relationship with Top Sport WRT. But this is very different. We haven't seen him in a Porsche before. It's a driver I associate with Mercedes a lot of the time. Be interesting to see how he gets on an entirely different kind of car. Engine's in a completely different place, so he's got a bit of learning to do. But yeah, he'll be looking at Maximilian Paul going, maybe that good luck can rub off on me.
Lucas Sauer has gone to the top of the times in this practice session, 1 minute 21.590. Depending on which circuit you are at during the course of the year, depends on the number of sets of new tyres you get for a race weekend to cover qualifying of the races. It's 3 sets here for this weekend to cover Saturday and Sunday. So they'll be using used tyres, but carryover tyres for practice, but be able to bring out 1 fresh set. And for Lucas Sauer, who got his first ever victory here at this. In fact, it was his first podium and his first victory all in one at the Lausitzring 6 years ago, back in 2016. So fond memories for Lugi of this circuit, and he's had 3 wins here altogether now. And he's a driver that is quietly sneaking his way up the championship table. It's not very long ago he was back in the mid-table and below, but already with a terrific weekend, his best so far at the Nürburgring. 2 podiums for Lugi. He's up to 6th place in the championship now with the Team Winwood driving. Runner-up in last year's championship, his best season in DTM, and also Team Winwood with the runners-up in the Teams Championship. So the great collaboration together, and they're getting better and better. And Lugi's top of the times for now. And then second quickest is somebody else with fond memories of this circuit, Sheldon van der Linde, not least a year ago, because he got a double victory here on his way eventually to the championship title, Sheldon van der Linde. Although Mirko Bortolotti has just gone quicker than both of them with the 121.1. Sheldon also scored his first ever DTM podium here at this circuit in 2020. And the other notable thing about that, or those wins here 12 months ago for Sheldon van der Linde, were that they were the first wins for the new BMW, as it was then, the new BMW M4 GT3 car. So he'll be hoping for good things here after what for Sheldon van der Linde was a really disappointing weekend at the Nürburgring. He got a few points for 7th in race 1. But with his qualifying performances being up near the front of the grid, 7th and 17th on the 2 races, they got the strategies and tyre choices wrong, didn't they, unfortunately?
Yes, it was a weekend that was all about strategy, wasn't it? I know René Rast, also a teammate, has also been a driver who has been looking back on the Nürburgring and saying, oh, we made the wrong decision. We took a risk, we took a gamble, and it didn't pay off. And René Rast, another of the BMW drivers who's a long way off in the points now as a result of that Nürburgring weekend. But it does show you how quickly things can turn around in the DTM. You can be riding high at the top of the points one weekend, and then suddenly you're nowhere the weekend after. Just looking at the timing screens, I see that Team Winwood have been reported to the stewards for an infringement of Article 23.4, and I believe that relates to the number of personnel allowed on the pit wall. I'm hoping that doesn't turn into anything. I can't imagine it would turn anything into a penalty for the driver. But as always in DTM, everything is very heavily regulated for safety and for fairness.
That's right. Watching Kelvin van der Linde then in the AB Sport S-Line Audi. Now, if anybody is due a bit of good luck this season, it's Kelvin van der Linde. He has been on top of it in terms of his pace. The car has been good. We know Ricardo Fellow, his teammate, has been going well in the championship. He's only a few points off the championship lead. Has been a race winner this year, but no wins as yet, no podiums as yet for Kelvin van der Linde. He's had some good drives through. He's had some top 6 finishes, but he got really unlucky last time out at the Nürburgring. On Saturday, he was nerfed off at turn 1. On Sunday, he got in the middle of turn 1, almost got out of turn 1 the very start of the race, and almost the same thing happened to him. So had to try and recover. He did a really good recovery drive to get back into the top 8 on Saturday. But his points that he scored, Kelvin van der Linde, he's 13th in the championship, really don't reflect how quick he's been driving.
No, and I saw an interview on social media with him and his brother yesterday, and he's pretty well conceding that he's out of the championship this year, and he says, I'm just going for the race wins. And I'd say that makes him a very dangerous man, because he's got nothing to lose. He said, I'm going to see what I can do to help my brother, and I am going for the race wins. And he very much proved that yesterday, because in the testing session yesterday, he was at the top of the timing screens, and I think he's going to be a man on a mission this weekend. I think it's going to be a kind of a win it or bin it attitude probably from Kelvin.
Yeah, Kelvin's got in the championship so far 43 points. His teammate Ricardo Fellow has got more than double that, 88 points. So he also, from a team point of view, be needing to help out his teammate as well. He's on another quick lap here, absolute best in the first sector for Kelvin van der Linde. Bortolotti Avega has just gone second and hour of the top 3 at the moment. The van der Lindes are actually together on the timing screen, 6th for Sheldon, 7th for Kelvin. That might be about to change though, because Kelvin van der Linde on a charging lap here. Here's one of the onboards looking into the eyes of the South African. He doesn't particularly like this place because he's never had a great deal of luck here either, which doesn't bode well, does it? 2021, he led the race comfortably in the DTM. 7 laps to go, randomly coming out of turn 1 on the tri-oval. His engine cut out for a few seconds. By the time he reset it, he dropped down. I think he was to 4th place, 4th or 5th. He got himself back onto the podium in the end, but it was heartbreakingly close to a race victory for Kelvin. He's gone second quickest with that lap, 121.346 seconds. Brian, a familiar look to the timing screen when you look from the top to the bottom. We've got 9/10 of a second between the top 22 in this session.
And also familiar to this time 2 weeks ago, because Mirko Bortolotti currently at the top, and he, having found, along with the team, what was wrong with the Lamborghini, an undisclosed problem that was slowing him at the beginning of the season. They've certainly sorted that, and he was dialed in at Nürburgring, looking very strong here again at the Lausitzring. So Mirko Bortolotti in the Lamborghini. The Evo 2 card, I'm told that the hot weather that we have here might be an issue, because with the Evo 2 Lamborghini Huracan, they've got the air vent on the roof, and apparently the hot air from the car in front can cause issues with overheating with that configuration. It's something, certainly Max Paul was talking about that in an interview earlier this week, an area they're concerned about, that if the temperatures get as high as we're expecting them to, especially on Sunday, there might be issues with overheating, with ventilation, particularly with the Evo 2 package in the Lamborghini Huracan.
The other overheating issue is going to be for the drivers themselves, because inside the cockpit of one of these cars, you can add about 30 degrees to the ambient temperature. So it's 34 degrees outside on Sunday. It's going to be 64, 65 degrees inside the cockpit of the car. Finely tuned athletes, and they absolutely will need to be this weekend. Right, Josef Avega's been having a good session so far. He's 3rd. We're watching the young German driver, his first season of DTM. He comes from Cologne. He's only 21 years old, but has already amassed quite a bit of experience. Was 3rd in the ADAC GT4 Championship back in 2019 when he was still a teenager. He's about to improve his time by the looks of it, and goes actually to the top of the times with that. Quicker than Bortolotti, so 121.162 seconds. It's only a fraction quicker than Bortolotti by 18 thousandths, though. He goes to the top of the times, although Kelvin van der Linde has just set the absolute best first sector time in this practice session. The first driver to break the 27-second mark. We're on board with him now, 26.909. It's not a personal best middle sector, but it's not a bad one, actually. He's only lost a 10th there, so overall he's almost matching Avega and Bortolotti's times here. If he holds it together through the final sector, he should be popping himself from 4th into the top 3, maybe into the top 2. Let's have a look how close to the wall he gets here. That's tasty, isn't it, as they come out of the final turn at turn 12 and back onto the tri-oval here. So he races for the line to complete another lap. Where will it put Kelvin van der Linde? It puts him to the top of the times by a 1/10.5. So into the 1 minute 21 is now the very low 1:21s, almost breaking the 1:20 barrier, which I think we're going to be doing easily when we get to qualifying tomorrow.
Yeah, we did say keep an eye on Kelvin van der Linde, didn't we? Lucas Au, we said keep an eye on him, and he pops up in second place as well.
Behaves a bit different. Braking for turn 8 feels like I'm kind of diving more, and the car is a bit more nervous, and feels like I'm touching maybe slightly for turn 8. Also for turn 1, I have a bit of a different behavior when turning in. But overall, I would say understeer my main limiting factor.
So that's Rennie Rast. You're looking at him now. That was him on the team radio giving some feedback, which is what the free practice is all about, really. Trying to learn where the car is, trying to then tweak it. And I know they were out testing yesterday, but the track is a living, breathing thing. Every time the track temperature changes, every time there might be some overnight rain or some other cars with other types of rubber go onto the circuit in the support series, it completely changes. So you can't find a setup at the start of the weekend and think, right, it's working, we'll go with that. You've got to keep tweaking it, and that feedback from a driver as experienced as the 3-time champion will be absolutely invaluable to Torsten Schubert's team, Schubert Motorsport. So Rene's saying it's a bit understeery. Turn 8, it's very nervous into turn 8. That's at the start of the final sector. And news coming through in the last couple of days that Rennie Rast is going to part ways with McLaren and Formula E for next season. So he's never quite had the sort of run of performance. He's had some good results. He's never quite had the run of performance in Formula E that he perhaps deserves. So it sounds like more of a focus back on to GT racing next year.
Yeah, and they'll be very welcome indeed. You do wonder whether he's just been a bit kind of in two places with his mind, and it feels like the pressure's on a little bit here. One of the comments that I'd read earlier in the week was that the pressure's on him a bit because there's coming to the point in the championship where Schubert are going to need to put their weight behind one particular driver, and if he's as far back in the points as he is now, when that decision is made, then he's not going to be that driver clearly that they put their weight behind. So he really wants to score some points and get on up there. Of course, he has memories of this place that are some are fond and some less fond, as we saw in the opener when he had that monstrous rollover, but he would love to have one of those weekends where it just all comes together. One comment about the track that you were making is this configuration is not used very much throughout the year, so there are sections of the track that don't have rubber on them. They've been washed well clean with a lot of rain over the last few days and weeks. In fact, there was a lot of rain last night where we were staying. But I think as this day progresses and as this weekend progresses, the rubber's going to get laid down more and more and the track is going to get quicker. But it is quite green in places, certainly in the windy infield sections.
Just been watching, and we're back to watching Arjun Maini with his new colour scheme for this year. He's another driver that would like to kind of forget about the first half of the season and scrub it off. It has not gone according to plan for him and the HRT squad. He's in his third season now of DTM, finished 12th in his first year in 2021. I remember when it was a different configuration, but when we came here in his first season, it was the first time that Arjun really sort of sparked and showed himself near the top of the times.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. The car definitely changed a bit overnight, also the track. For me, coming through turn 2, I struggled to keep it flat out. When the car's on full load, so full squat, that the nose is just up and I'm understeering like crazy. In full pitch, so when I'm braking, trail braking, entry is on the limit. So it's like a bit of a big balance change. I feel like the car is, when it's squatting, too much understeer, when it's pitching, too much.
That's not ideal, is it? So it's fascinating, isn't it, to get this the feedback from the drivers. So first, Kelvin's saying turn 2, which is just after you come off the left-hand off the trial, we go through this right-hand kick. They clip the inside curb and throw themselves directly into a left-hander. Should be flat, but he's struggling to keep it flat. He's understeering there. So that's one problem, but then he said it's, just as radio faded, it's also pitching, which means as you turn in at some corners, it's turning in a bit too violently, and that kicks the back end out and oversteers, turns too much into the corner. So usually you have one problem or the other, and he can kind of make the adjustments accordingly. But if you've got understeer and oversteer, that can be a tricky thing to try and resolve. You're going to have a compromise somewhere in your setup.
Yes, and that's what free practice is all about, isn't it? Trying to get that balance and that compromise. If there's anybody who can do it, it's Kelvin van der Linde and the AB Sportsline team. So they are very good for that. I was just looking at the timing screens. We've had 26 cars out on track. The two cars that have yet to appear are the two Emil Frey Racing Ferraris. Both are in the garages, although as I speak, Thierry Vermeulen's car has been pushed out of the garage. But interesting that neither of those Ferraris have been out on track yet.
No, Jack Aitken's car still in the garage at the moment. Absolutely right. So 26 cars have been out so far. Jack Aitken announcing as well in the last couple of days that he's got a full-time contract for the IMSA Sports Car Championship over in the States next year, which he's done a few races already and has been a race winner at Daytona, has been on the podium at Watkins Glen. So he's going to be with Cadillac. I hope that means we're still going to have the chance to see him at least for some other season in DTM next year. It's his first year in DTM, and it's been mixed so far. A great weekend at Oschersleben on debut, got 3rd place and the team's first DTM podium, but they really struggled with top speed, and they've had some lag issues on the car. Norris Ring was a bit of a nightmare with the BOP. They reckon didn't favour them either, so had a really tough weekend at the Norris Ring. They were quick at the Nürburgring, but the weather wasn't ideal for everybody. It was a gamble whether you went for slicks or wets, and it felt like they just kept making or picking their moments quite badly, or luck was against them. It was almost every time Jack came into the pits over the weekend, the weather changed just after he changed tyres and had to come back in and change again. He had some gearbox issues in race 2, which sent him locked off the road as well when he was in a good position. So, on another weekend, I think he would have been well up in the points and probably challenging for podiums, because he qualified really well at the Nürburgring, but it wasn't to be.
Yes, but for those unfortunate decisions, Jack Aitken was always at the sharp end when it came to times and when it came to qualifying, but just always seemed to be pitting for the tyres just as the weather was turning in the opposite direction, and ended up coming away, with 0 points as a result of that. And very, very frustrated, because he had the machinery and he enjoys those conditions normally, but it just wasn't falling in his favour. It's just all about reading the weather and being on the right tyre at the right time. And Emil Frey, they tried to be one step ahead, but it just never happened. No such problems this weekend. I don't think we're going to get any rain. Certainly it looks as though we're going to have a fairly level playing field in terms of track conditions.
Fromm Pereira has gone to the top of the times in his SSR Performance Lamborghini, one of the 8 different race winners this year. In fact, he was the first winner of the season at Oschersleben and got Lamborghini's first ever win as a brand in the DTM. The French driver, the 39-year-old, with a 120.939 to put him 79 thousandths quicker than Kelvin van der Linde. Josefa Vega 3rd and Lucas Auer 4th are both in the pits at the moment. Mirko Bortolotti's on track, dropped to 5th. Arjun Maini, we followed a few minutes ago. He's 6th at the moment, but in the pits. Clemens Schmidt in the Lamborghini, the Austrian, 7th. He's in the pits. Then Marco Wittmann is 8th, Maro Engel 9th, and Lucas Stotz in 10th place. They are all out on track at the moment as we go back on board with Kelvin van der Linde. So Pereira top of the times. If anybody had a nightmare weekend, particularly Saturday at the Nürburgring, it was Fromm Pereira, who had all sorts of discussions with the stewards for various incidents. He was involved in the incident at turn 1 with Kelvin van der Linde. He had other incidents with pit lane infringements, and it's just generally a nightmare the Saturday for him, wasn't it? But he did manage to get into the points and a 10th place finish on Sunday.
Yeah, he had his own room in the steward's office, I understand, because he was up there a fair bit of time. Poor old Fromm Pereira, because he has started the season off so well, obviously with that win at the start of the season, but it was a bit of a mare for him, wasn't it? And probably just kind of brush that one off and look ahead. There's Luca Engsler that we're seeing at the moment. He's currently 12th. He had a good time at the Nürburgring, came up with some good results, got a 7th place, which was his best of the season. Slowly getting to grips with that car and with running in DTM, of course, in his debut season. So great to see Team Engsler making strides forwards. Just looking down at the order, Max Paul, we've got one eye on him, the winner from the last race. He's currently in 14th place, a 1:21.603. Remember, when we come to the race on Saturday, tomorrow that is, he'll be carrying a 20-kilogram ballast as a result of that win. Also, just having a look to see where Marvin Dienst is, and he's up in 13th place as well, so he's doing very well indeed, a 1:21.603.
Thierry Vermeulen has ventured out on track. Jack Aitken's out of the garage now, so hopefully the Ferrari will be out on track soon. In terms of the drivers that are currently out there, about half of the drivers are on track. Pereira is still the quick. He's just come in actually, but Pereira did another low 1:21, so did a few quick laps. His best was the 1:20.9. Then Luca Engstler is in the 1:21s as well. René Rast has just done a 1:21.9. So in terms of current pace, you got those three, and Sheldon van der Linde in the 1:21s, a few of them lapping in the 1:22s, like Sandro Holtzum and Alessio De Leda as well. But some of them doing slightly longer runs now. Nobody's done a really long run yet, but some of them stringing together 3, 4, 5 lap runs as they try to set up and understand how the tyres and the cars work over a longer run as well. You talk about the ups and downs of DTM, how it can change from one round to the next. It can change from one day to the next, can't it? Aaron Heinrich at the Nürburgring in the press conference at the end of a very successful Sunday, he said, it's crazy, this championship. I was 19th yesterday, I'm second today. And it's been like that for a lot of drivers, hasn't it? But it was good to see Lara getting his first podium, the Porsche Carrera Cup Germany champion. Somebody who won in the Porsche Super Cup as well. He won at the British Grand Prix in Porsche Super Cup. The year he finished third in the championship, and I think he'll be one that gets better and better as the season goes on.
Yeah, he's a hugely talented driver, is Lauren Heinrich, and he has been really dominant. Last year in Porsche Carrera Cup Germany, he had the championships signed and sealed before the season had even finished, and he's not one for lurking at the back of the field, and I think that podium that we saw at Nürburgring was probably a sign of things to come. We're looking at Kelvin van der Linde coming into the pits very slowly. That looks, I think he's probably just keeping to the speed limit, but certainly no urgency going on there. Or is he coming out of the pits? Oh, he's coming out of the pits. No, he's going into the pits. There we go. It's
right at the end. At Sportsline, right at the end.
A long old trek down there, wasn't it?
It's a very long pit lane, and it's a very wide pit lane here. But for these racing drivers, it must feel like, you know, a snail's pace to them when you imagine they've got to do that in the races. So up to right at their pit garage is right at the end of the pit lane, so it's a very long run in, but of course a short run out then. So that's going to be the pit stop's going to be, as always, critical when we get to the racing. So Kelvin comes in. The top four are all in there: Pereira, van der Linde, Vega, and Auer. We're on board with René Rast, who's putting together a few laps here. He's crept up into the top 10 with his last lap. He's on a personal best lap on this one as well. Personal best first sector, personal best second sector. On board with him as he comes out of the final turn, gets really close to the wall in the Schubert BMW. His teammate, of course, is Sheldon van der Linde, who is second in the championship on 89 points. René Rast is without a win so far this season. He got a double podium at the Norris Ring. He missed Zandvoort round 2 because of his Formula E commitments, but hasn't quite got the win so far this season. That's a further improvement that puts him up to 8th place. But in terms of the championship this year, he's in 9th position. He's got 54 points compared to Sheldon van der Linde with 89. So absolutely right about the team having to think at some point, you know, where do we put the focus in terms of the Drivers' Championship, particularly if Sheldon has a good weekend here. But René Rast has been a winner here. Of course he has. He's been a winner everywhere, hasn't he, René Rast? But he was a double victor here in 2020, but he's not used to being so low down the championship. When you look at his record in the DTM since he came in, he did a few races in 2016, but his first full season, 2017, DTM champion. 2018, second in the championship. 2019, DTM champion. 2020, DTM champion. And then was away in 2021, came back in 2022, finished third, which was his worst at the time, but now he's in 9th place. So I think probably expecting perhaps a bit of a transition, having been with Audi all these years and gone to BMW with Schubert this year. But as somebody who's won so many races, so many championship titles, not just in DTM but in Porsche racing as well, he is not going to be happy unless he starts winning races pretty shortly.
Yes, there is an element of frustration as we ride on board with him now, and he really wants to pull it together. It looked like Norrisring really was a turning point for him, but it's been a voyage of discovery for him. Of course, as already mentioned, he's switched from Audi to BMW, and he has said it's taken a little while just to get to grips with an entirely different car configuration. And it's not going to, well, he is going to get there in the end, but this year it feels like the transition year. He's still just trying to get to grips with the BMW after the Audi. We're riding on board with him now, looking out of the window, but he keeps nibbling away, and he will come fighting back eventually. We're looking now at his teammate Sheldon van der Linde, defending champion in the DTM as well, out on track.
Of course, René Rast nearly got a win, didn't he, at Norrisring, but then this young Austrian chap dived up the inside of him all the way into the hairpin and snatched the victory away. Thomas Preining, his second win in as many years at the Norrisring. A robust move, which was jaw-dropping to watch. It wasn't René Rast's favourite move that's ever been pulled on him, because he was a bit grumbly about it afterwards, wasn't he? But
surely not. You mentioning Thomas Preining there. He's been quite quiet today. Oh, someone's had an off now. Who's that?
Yes, that's right opposite the commentary box in the infield there. So that's turn 7. We just see the dust from where we are. It's hidden behind a tree. And it's Clement Schmidt in the Lamborghini. So he's gone off the road there.
That's going to be a red.
It's his birthday today as well, we're told.
Oh, so. what a present that is for him, because that's going to bring out a red flag, surely. They can't leave that there, and it doesn't look like he's able to move on his under his own steam. So happy birthday, Clemens. That's not the present you were hoping for. I was about to mention Thomas Preining, who's had a fairly quiet day today. Some interesting strategies. You're looking at the Manthey EMA cars. They've been sat in the garage for quite a long time, as have Emil Frey. Both of those cars, the Emil Frey racing cars, have been out, done cycle laps, come in again, and not really pushing too hard. Of course, a lot of these teams were out testing yesterday, so they've done a lot of the work. Full course yellow now as a result of that car, so not a red flag. Full course yellow means everybody has to run to 80 kilometers an hour.
Get a replay here. Just lost the back end going into the corner under braking. So a 360, but it's a huge gravel track there, isn't it? So there's never any danger of him reaching the barriers. He's not that far into it, but the car buried full course yellow, which really means there's no point being out there, is there? Because you aren't going to set any noticeable lap times, anything relevant really. So I think a lot of them will now bail for the pits anyway. Clock will continue to run because it's a practice session rather than a qualifying session, a competitive session. And already you can see the digger is headed over there to go and recover the car with the telehandler. So yeah, 33rd birthday today for Clement Schmidt, but it's not the way he wanted to start the day, although he has been going pretty quickly. He's in 8th place overall, and just before that full course yellow, Patrick Niederhauser in the Tresor Orange Audi put himself into the top 6, the number 83 car, with a 121.246. He went a whole 1,000th of a second quicker than Arjun Miney to achieve that. So Pereira only want to break the 121 so far, 120.939. Kelvin van der Linde, 121.018, 79 thousandths adrift. And then you got Josef Vega, who's almost 2 tenths behind, so a bit of a gap between the top 2 and the rest. Vega third with a 121.117. Also in the 121.1s are Auer and Bortolotti in 4th and 5th. In the 121.2 second bracket, Niederhauser in 6th, Miney in 7th, Schmidt in 8th, and also René Rast in 9th place, who is the best of the BMWs. The BMWs are altogether 9th, 10th and 11th. Rast with a 121.28. Wittmann with a 121.346, and Sheldon van der Linde with a 121.347. It's another gap on the timing screen where there's just 1,000th of a second between 2 drivers. Get used to it.
Yes, welcome to the DTM, everybody. Interesting strategies. We already mentioned the Manthey EMA cars and also Emil Frey, who have not been putting in lots of laps, been taking it easy, loitering towards the bottom of the timing screens, had done a lot of testing earlier in the week. I do wonder, if you remember at Nürburgring, we did see a change in the BOP as the weekend progressed, and there may be a tendency for some drivers not to show their hands too early because drivers don't like it when they get additional weights that are applied as the weekend is in progress. And I'm just wondering what the strategy is for Emil Frey with the 2 Ferraris. Mantar EMA, both of them, well, Aitken and Vermeulen have not put in a competitive time yet, and we're getting to the end of the session. Dennis Olsen and Thomas Preining, well, 20th and 23rd is where they're loitering at the moment, and they've only done a handful of laps as well. So interesting, Lamborghini at the top, and then Audi, then Mercedes. But a lot of drivers not really pushing hard in this session, not putting in lots of laps, and just kind of taking it easy, really, if that was such a thing.
Yeah, it'll get a bit more frenetic usually in free practice too, because that's obviously the last run before you then get to qualifying tomorrow morning. So take what you can in terms of setting up for longer runs and the race, but also they're going to have to try some one-lap runs as well in that second practice session. It'll be a mix of the two. They tend to go for the one-lap runs fairly early in the session, then spend a bit of time in free practice 2 going for longer runs, 6, 7, 8 lap runs, and then maybe bang in a couple of quick one-off laps towards the end as well. Just so you know as well, on the circuit this weekend, the penalty box, the penalty area, is on the exit to turn 5, so that's where they rejoin the tri-oval on the exit to turn 1, so that's where they'll have to run at a reduced speed if they get a penalty. And this new rule for DTM, but a rule that's the ADAC have run for a number of years with great success. If you pick up a penalty rather than a drive-through, which ruins your race, you have to go through the penalty box at a reduced speed, costs you about 5 seconds, and you have to serve it within 2 laps. You're going to get the penalty. You can only pass the start-finish line once after that before you serve the penalty. So it's on the exit to turn 5. So it's in Lucas Stoltz looking mindful. There's René Rast as well. We'd like to get out there and get some more running. The Clement Schmidt Lamborghini, because he's up on the telehandler now, so they've got it airborne. But it's, you know, it's like a Ibiza beach, that gravel trap, isn't it? It's absolutely massive, so it's going to take a little while to get out of it. So I think, I would guess in about the next 2, maybe 3 minutes, we'll get back up to running. But really, in terms of meaningful time, they're only going to have 4 or 5 minutes, so, you know, 3 or 4 laps really of proper running.
Yeah, and this can really interrupt your program. You've got the whole of the 45 minutes set out, what you want to do, how you want to play it, and suddenly everyone's crawling around at a slow speed, or in most cases back into the pits. Quite a few cars coming out of the pit lane now, so clearly the anticipation that car is going to be cleared, going to get the heat into the tyres, but then it is just going to be a bit of a blast for the last probably about 7 minutes or so. You can see the view from Tim Heinemann just cruising around at no more than 80 kilometres an hour. But frustrating when you've got a programme to get through.
Tim Heinemann with his new teammate Marvin Dienst for this weekend with Tok Sports, who got their first podiums in DTM, courtesy of Tim, in the first weekend at Oschersleben. Seems a while ago, but he finished second in both races, led the championship after the first weekend, but since then he's only had he had 2 more point scoring finishes. They were last time out at the Nürburgring with a 12th and a 14th. So it hasn't really ever hit the dizzying heights of Oschersleben for Tim Heinemann, but a double DTM trophy champion he is. Great GT4 race, that already proved what he can do at Oschersleben, and hopefully he'll be up there again before the end of the season. There you can see up airborne now with the help of the marshals is the Lamborghini of Clement Schmidt, who went off about 5 or 6 minutes ago now on the run into turn 7. But having a bit of trouble with it sort of tipping forward, aren't they, from its hoist position there. So the front of the car is still dragging on the gravel, and that's why the marshals are at the back of the car. They're trying to leverage the back of the car up to avoid damaging the splitter and avoid it dragging in the gravel. So that's why it's taking longer than expected.
Yeah, more than the work of a moment getting these out, isn't it? I love the way you describe it. It's airborne. They wear the wings. So yes, hard-working marshals out in the very hot sunshine at the moment, and it's a fairly technical business getting this thing out of the gravel trap, and I'm guessing they'll drop it back on the track so that he can actually probably drive it back to the pit lane. Lots of people here at the Lausitzring this weekend enjoying the sunshine. It's only Friday, but still plenty of people here. We're expecting some big crowds this weekend. It's going to be an entertaining weekend here.
Yeah, despite the weather at the Nürburgring, the weekend attendance figures that were published on Sunday afternoon at the Nürburgring a couple of weeks ago was over 49,000, which was really impressive. You could tell it was busy, and they came in their droves despite it not being exactly spectator-friendly weather on the Sunday, so yeah, we always get a big crowd here at the Lausitzring as well. It's sometimes hard to get, because that grandstand is so big, it gets hard to kind of gauge just how busy it is when you look at the grandstand sometimes, because, you know, it takes 120,000 people to fill that up. But behind the grandstand there's a whole fan zone set up, isn't there? ADAC do a great job, so they get deck chairs out, there's a big screen so you can watch the action, there's all sorts of merchandise and trade stalls, food stalls that run almost the length of that grandstand, or at least half the length of that grandstand, probably about half a kilometre's worth of it, and it's absolutely packed down there on race days at the Lausitzring. You have to fight your way through to get to the lift, to get to the commentary box, don't you?
Yes, we have a lift. Some of us take the stairs. You looked at the grandstands there. It didn't look like there are many people on, because they're all huddled up in the shady bit under the roof right at the top. And the wonderful thing about this circuit is if you do get to the back of the grandstand, you can pretty well see the whole circuit. There's not many places you can go. You practically see into Dresden, to be quite honest. We're so high up. Again, altitude sickness up here. We're into, well, less than 5 minutes remaining. I think the full course yellow hopefully is going to finish before too long, but this is taking a lot longer. Just looking out of the window, looks like the Clemens Schmidt car is now back on the tarmac, so they've just got to get the telehandler out of the way. But a lot of people, there's a lot of just kind of waiting around and circulating at the moment. Going to be a busy last 4.5 minutes or so. Here's some team radio from Clemens Schmidt.
I forgot to tell you to smile. Anyway, with option for us is over. It's 5 minutes till the end. We still have to check the car.
Don't imagine that, or did he say I forgot to tell you to smile at the start of that? I just misheard that completely.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like, yeah. It's your birthday, smile.
Yeah, for us the session is over, pretty much for everybody else as well, really, because that full course yellow I think is more or less going to stay to the end of the session there. They need to figure a better way of hoisting the Lamborghinis, don't they, where the front doesn't tip over. But they don't want to damage the rear wing either, so the marshals are being careful where they push the back down to lift or raise the front of it. So not the ideal start to the weekend for Clemens Schmidt or everybody else who basically have missed pretty much the last third of that session, really, due to the full course yellows. So no more meaningful running for them. But one Lamborghini down in the dumps, red flag now. Another one at the top of the times from Pereira with that 1:20.9. They've red flagged it. They're not going to get going now. No. Well, it's 3 minutes and 3.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, it's not looking hopeful, is it? Normally when the red flag comes out, the clock stops. But yes, really, it's pit stop practice is kind of the main thing now, isn't it? Because you're not going to have time to go and get the heat into the tyres. In fact, we've had confirmation the session will not be resumed. So a slightly kind of exciting start, and then it kind of petered out a bit, didn't it?
Yeah, what it is going to mean, I think, is a really busy second free practice this afternoon, because they've only really had half an hour of running in that session. So they've got this programme of things that each driver would want to run through. You've heard feedback from Kelvin van der Linde and Rennie Rast on team radio saying we want to change the setup, in Kelvin's case pretty radically, to try things out. They probably didn't get much chance to do that in that last 15 minutes, 20 minutes of the session. So I think what you will see if you join us for the afternoon session is lots and lots of cars on track for the second free practice 45 minutes, which is due to get underway at 2:45 local time here in Germany, just coming up to 11:43 here at the moment local time. We'll be on air about 5 minutes beforehand as well to talk you through the build-up to free practice at 2:45, and we won't cover it on our television coverage, but there's going to be another track safari after free practice 2 as well, which was hugely successful at the Nürburgring, where the coaches full of paying guests go out onto the track. I think we had 3-4 coaches, didn't we, at the Nürburgring? Yeah. They did 2 laps, one on the outside of the circuit, one on the inside. The coaches are going slowly, but not going slowly. The DTM cars, which go all around them and drive all the way around them, so an experience to feel like they're in almost part of a race for the fans, and another new innovation for the ADAC this year.
It was wonderful, wasn't it? They had drivers on. They had Mike David Ortman and Jan Philip Springhob on the coaches with microphones telling the various people. I think, who's the other one? Was it someone like Timo Bernhard or someone? I can't remember who was in the third one now. But they were had microphone. They were talking to the passengers on the coaches. And if you look at the pictures on social media, it looked spectacular. I'm like, well, I'm quite tempted to put the microphone down and go and have a little go myself, actually, because that looked looked wonderful out there, and a lot of the drivers running really close to the buses as well and giving everybody a thrill. Wonderful innovation.
I think it might be double champion Timo Schneider.
Timo Schneider, that was it. I get my Timo's mixed up. Yes, it was.
Went out, yeah,
yes.
So pretty useful guide. He knows, he's, of course, a very good commentator these days as well, Timo. And in some cases, it was a useful bit of extra practice because last time out, free practice 2 was almost completely canned for Maro Engel with an ABS braking problem. And he was able to go out for the track safari. Of course, they couldn't go at full speed, but he could at least, and the team could at least check that the car and the brakes were working properly. So that was beneficial for them. And not that they were hanging around, they were still putting some pretty quick lap times in. I mean, they're slowing around to go around the buses, but they weren't slowing down that much. Quite a spectacle that must have been. So that's this afternoon as well, after the second free practice session, the drivers stay in the cars and go out. But for free practice 1 from Pereira for SSR Performance, with the best time of the session, 120.939, just under 80 thousandths slower was Kelvin van der Linde. Yusuf Vega impressive in 3rd. Lucas Auer got his first ever win here at the circuit, 4th. Mirko Bortolotti now a winner in the DTM, 5th. Patrick Niederhauser, a very late improvement to 6th place. Miney, Schmidt, Rast and Wittmann were in the top 10 as well. Sheldon van der Linde, the driver second in the championship, was in 11th place. Ahead of Luca Engsler, Maro Engel, Lucas Stoltz and Ricardo Feller, championship contender, back in 15th. See Marvin Dietz there and Max Paul, two of the newcomers to the championship, 17th and 18th, doing a pretty good job. Only 20th place for Thomas Preining, but he won't be too worried about that. He's been the best qualifier on average so far this season. And even when he didn't qualify well, last time out at the Nürburgring, he managed to come from 16th to 5th. So we'll see lots more action, I think, for the second practice session here at the Lausitzring in sunny conditions. That's due to get underway at 2:45. So from Brian Oliver and me, Chris Hartley, hope you've enjoyed our coverage of free practice 1. We'll speak to you again in a few hours' time for the next session.